this tutorial is being this session is being recorded, and I would upload it on YouTube. This session I'm going to upload it on YouTube. So what I'm going to be talking about once again is pseudocode and the whole idea behind it. Welcome once again. And let's get started. We'll be talking about pseudocode today. Pseudocode. First question to ask is, what is pseudocode? I think that's the very first question to ask. What is pseudocode? And now, so I'm not going to talk about ALX here, because this is what I believe. For everything you know, you should know it well, and not because of a given task. And so pseudocode does not even have, pseudocode is not a property of ALX. So rather than try to solve a task you know nothing about, it's better to know it, and then solving it would be the easiest thing to do. So let's start by first explaining what pseudocode is. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. Let's do that. I'm sharing my screen, so if you do a quick search everywhere, like what is pseudocode, so there are a lot of definitions about what pseudocode is. For our own knowledge, let's look at the word pseudo in itself, so it will help us understand what pseudocode is and how pseudocode concerns our Yeah, Joshua, I can see your question. The answer is no, because I'll soon be leaving this screen, and if I mute it, I will not be able to admit anyone else. So, pseudo generally means this, not real or genuine. Another word for pseudo is fake. So you could refer to the word pseudo in your normal activities. It means fake. Alright, so if we are going to put pseudocode, it will simply mean fake code. So the very first thing you want to have in mind when we talk about pseudocode is this, is fake code. So this is the very first thing you want to have in mind whenever we are going to be talking about pseudocode, fake code. So pseudocode is a code, but it's a fake one. So what's the essence of pseudocode? Pseudocode is to list down or prepare the steps for your code. Why do we need to write a fake code? When you're solving problems, what you want to first do is to know the problem. Then you have to think about what can solve the problem before you eventually solve the problem. So when you're writing code, before you write the real code, you have to know what the code you're writing is going to do. Then you have to list out steps that will help you solve that problem in the code. So that's what pseudocode helps you do. It helps you list down the steps in your head. So what happens is that you're mapping your mind, you're preparing your mind to solve that problem with fake code. Now, a good pseudocode can be written in plain English. a good pseudocode can be written in plain English. So I want you to also keep that in, that the best pseudocodes are written in plain English. So it's written in plain English. What's the purpose of a pseudocode? It is to give a description, an idea of what you want to do. For example, if you are going to build a website, the client is going to ask for a prototype. Show me what you are going to be doing with code. The client is going to ask for that. Something he can see that would give him a good idea of what he's going to meet. In the same way, your pseudocode gives you or anybody that sees it a good idea of what he's going to meet. Now, so you can also call it an informal way of programming description that does not require any strict programming language or syntax. Now, it is used for creating a rough draft of the program. To understand how easy pseudocode is, let's do something now. If you're with your system, I pleaded with all of us to join with our systems. Try this. Just list out the steps to cook rice. Let's just do this so we can explain what pseudocode is better. Okay, for the sake of those who may not join with their system, can someone just unmute and in like 60 seconds list out the steps to cook rice? Just unmute and list out the steps. Any. So this 1, 2, yeah. So step 1.
Measure your rice, number of the volume of rice you want to use, not to boil. Then
that's step 1. Step 2.
Step 2, you wash your rice.
Wash the rice
with water.
Step 3.
Then step 3, you put it in the pot, the cooking pot.
Step 4.
Boil.
Boil.
You cook it in the boil. Yeah. And step 4, you allow the water to dry off.
6. Is this all?
When there's no water, not all. Okay. Once the rice is well cooked, you test. Once it's well cooked, then and there's no water again, then it's ready to serve.
Thank you. Can anybody? So this 1. Can any other person give me some step? I want to explain why they said map your mind and then associated pseudocode with it. You remember in VI project it's called VI, it's not your VI. In Emacs it's Emacs, not your Emacs. In Git it's Git, not your Git. But it's get to pseudocode and they said map your mind. So I want to explain that with this example. So another person give me steps to cook rice. Any other person, just unmute and tell me.
Okay, can I try?
Alright.
Okay, first step, measure quantity of rice.
Measure quantity of rice. 2.
Second step, wash rice until clean.
Wash rice until it's clean. Step 3.
Place rice in a pot.
Okay. Step 4.
Add water.
Add water. Step 5.
Add salt.
Add
Appropriate amount.
Add appropriate. This is a wrong spelling of appropriate, but let's just continue. Amount of salt 6.
Turn on gas cooker.
On gas cooker 7.
Place pots of rice on gas cooker.
Yes.
So now boil till rice is soft.
Any other step?
Well, wait and see, then check rice.
Come again.
I think
Step
that
9.
So wait for rice to boil. Then final step, check rice.
Check. And we are done. Alright. So the first person did 6 steps. So the first person measure the volume of rice, wash the rice, put it in cooking pot, boil, allow water to drain, taste. Second person gave 9 steps. So just a quick question: if we follow this first step, this 1 to 6, would we cook rice? Yes or
Yes,
no?
you cook.
Thank you. If we follow this second step, would we cook rice?
Yes, we will.
Okay. So 2 people have just given their individual steps to cook their rice. So if we are going to follow this, now let's assume I'm a robot and I will do anything I've been told, and I follow this. This rice will not have salt. This one will have salt. Now, telling a robot put appropriate amount. What do we call appropriate amount of salt? So you see, our computers are robots. They only do what we tell them. If I press space on my computer, you see it keeps moving. The moment I stop pressing the space bar, it stops. So when you're writing a code, any program at all, you know that this computer knows nothing about it. Just like a robot knows nothing about cooking of rice, and you would impute all the steps. So measure quantity of rice, fine. Measure the volume of rice, basically the same thing. Wash, basically the same thing. Put the rice in cooking pots, place rice in pots, the same thing. Now add water. Yes, it's boil. So this rice will start heating without water for a robot. Now add appropriate amount of salt, nothing. Turn on the gas cooker. So here just said boil. Okay, then place pot of rice on gas cooker. So you could see this one is a little more detailed, but then there's something we are forgetting. How do we get the rice in the first place? From where are we measuring the quantity of rice? So another person could come here, and in his first step he will tell you to step 1, go to the market. Step 2, buy rice. Buy 5 cups of rice. And then step 3, come back home to the kitchen. Step 4, add water in boil. Step 5, untie the rice bag and wash rice inside the bowl. Step 6, repeat the washing process twice. Now these are 6 steps, but we've not even talked about putting the rice in pots. So what the person has done is gone to the market. You know, another person could be detailed and describe the market to this robot. You take 10 steps left, then you have to move straight another 15 steps, turn right, stop at that spot. That is the market. You could go on to do all this description. At the end of the day, this person is correct, the second person is correct, and the third one is correct. But it's a matter of precision. And if this is a code, any single detail missed out would return an error. So in coding, if you're supposed to put this, you're supposed to put semicolon and you missed it with a colon, this would make your program not work. So when you're writing a dummy code or a pseudocode or a fake code, you could decide to add all this precision, or you could decide to leave it. So all what we've been doing here is we've been doing a pseudocode for rice. You could call it just a pseudo for rice, a pseudo rice, a fake rice. You know, we are listing out the steps. That is the whole concept of pseudocode. So if I'm going to leave this rice example now and probably talk about something related to code. If you notice, if you were here from the start, I said I'm not talking exactly about your project, because this thing will be live on YouTube, and if I talk about the project, I could get evicted for that, since ALX already knows me and my YouTube channel. Now, these are various examples of pseudocode in real life projects. For example, let's say you are asked to write a program. Now I'm going to be giving examples similar to what you have on your on your project. You're asked to write a program that should determine a class of a student by its age. If you can list out these steps very well, you will be able to solve at least 2 of the 3 questions in the project. So take it that this was what ALX asked you to do. Determine the class by age. You're going to write a program that determines a student's class by the age. And this is it. Now, with the same example we've used before in Map Your Mind when we were talking about rice, can you just in plain English tell us the steps that we'll have to follow to be able to determine a student's class by its age? What will be the first step? you're free to just unmute and tell me. Step 1 to do this. This now is a code, and I literally wrote this code.
Step 1.
Yeah, yes. So what will be step 1?
Step 1.
Yes.
We classify the student by their age. Look at the age of the students.
Okay, so step 1, just say it again. Step 1.
Age of the students. Age of the students.
Great. This is step 1. Thank you. Another person. What's the step 1? And if you notice, I didn't say correct or wrong. So, another person. Please, you have to unmute you have to mute somebody's background, is too noisy. I was talking about step 1. Another person. One person said age of the students. That's our first step to do this program. So what do you think is the first step? What do you think? Gathering the students together. Alright. Okay. You can mute. Please send yours as a message because your background is noisy. Another person whose background is calm. What do you think is the first What do you think is the first step? One person has said age of the students. So what do you think is your first step? You could just go on. Any other person. This is the program we want to write. Determine a student's class by age. What do you think is the first step? Someone said age of students is the first step. What do you think is your first step?
I think we can do the range as far, from 0 to 5 as kindergarten, from 6 to 11 and primary or nursery, something like that. That's what I think would be my first step.
Okay, so first step is range. First step is range.
Yes, classify by range. I mean, classify class by age, and that put it like that. Classify class by range.
Classify class by age. This is this correct? Okay, this basically is the question now. I said determine a student's class by age, so we just renamed it. This is the program. What is the first step to achieve this program? Everybody is free to comment.
Can I add something, please?
You can use the message. Okay, Obadiah said reach student age. I'm going to write that now. Desire said get a total of 30 students. Alright, so next person said step 1 is to read students age. Another person said get a total of 30 students. Alright, someone wanted to add something. What's your own step 1?
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. This is a question, please. So the 5 goes to kindergarten. Are you saying 5 students goes to kindergarten, or children who are 5 years old go? Then 6 is just to understand that part.
Okay, just for you to understand it, I would answer. But if you look at your ALX project, some things were not clear, and that's why you are a software engineer, to determine what exactly they are saying. So if I say 5 goes to kindergarten, 6 to 17 goes to nursery school, greater than 17 goes to college, and here says classify by age, would it mean 5 students goes to kindergarten or age 5 goes to kindergarten? What do you think it would mean?
Okay, that makes it clear. It means age 5 goes to kindergarten.
Exactly. So this is part of it. This is your thought process. Each person does his own thought. This is not one of the, if you check your deadline, this project is going to expire very soon. VI has started before, and I think VI and this project will end the same time, or VI is even longer. So this is actually made a short project because it's not something you can even copy. It makes no sense. It's something you think, the thought process, and that's why I really want everybody to give me their thought process of how they will get step 1. So the first thing is what she just did now, understanding the question. That's the first thing. And then start your thought process. So I've gotten 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if I have other messages. Query student's age. Alright. Now, this is a sign of a good program that it can be read by non-programmers. So I'm going to assume I'm a non-programmer, and step 1 is to query student's age. Alright. So I'll assume I don't know what this means in the first place. So any other person with any other step on what to do here? Alright, so let's look at all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps that we've gotten. Now the first one says age of students. So I assume telling the computer age of students. If I tell the computer age of students, it would expect me to say it now. It's just like you come and you just tell me name of phone. That's an incomplete statement. Name of phone. I'd ask you, are you asking me or you're telling me? So if I say age of students, the question is, am I asking the age of students, or I'm going to tell the computer the age of students? So this is the first question with this step. This is a question mark with this step. So this step has a question mark because it's not yet complete. Now the next step says classify class by age. That's exactly what I want to do. So what's the step to do it? What's the step to do it? Now the next one says read student's age. Good, but I don't have the student's age. So how do I get the student's age? If I can read student's age, I will move on with this now. 5, 6 to 17 and then greater than 17. But I don't even have the student's age. Get a total of 30 students. Okay, our program did not ask us to get 30 students. Our program did not tell us how many students we are expecting. And in your real life applications, you don't know how many people would use your app, how many people would use your program. So if I do 30 and then I have 31, our program is going to crash. So it puts comma. Now query student's age. Okay, good enough. But we want it in the simplest way we can get it. The simplest form ever. That is the whole idea of pseudocode. You see my thought process with each of these. So I didn't do the bad sign or good sign. I just put question mark to all of these. So out of all of these steps, which one do you think comes closest, or what do you think we can add now to get the first step from this thought process I just shared? What do you think we can add now to do something that the computer will not throw an error? Remember, I'm using a real world project, not the RICE example now. So what do you think we can add as first step that the computer would most likely understand? The question is, determine a student's class by age. See, when you see the full stop, that is one aspect of the program has been written on, or a comma, even if it's a comma, one aspect of the program has been gotten. This is aspect 2, this aspect 3, this aspect 4. So I'm not going to start reading all of this. For me, these things are non-existent. I'm going to see how to break down this first step first. Determine a student's class by age. So if I'm going to determine a student's class by age, which of these options do you think, or what more can we add to help us determine a student's class by age? Answer.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Okay. We can say it this way. For age lesser than or equal to 5 goes to kindergarten. Age 5 or age 5 or less goes to kindergarten.
Okay, this is your first step. Okay, so great. Determine a student's class by age. I don't even know what age we're talking about here. So the first child comes and I don't know his age. What's the first thing I'll do? I'll tell him age 5 goes to kindergarten. Do you think the computer will accept that? I don't even know his age, and I say age 5 goes to kindergarten as my first step. With the computer.
Okay, I think we should go on this way.
Yeah.
Determine the age of the students. Step 1.
Determine the age of the students. Good. Now that's a brilliant step 1. But now we want precision. Tell the computer how to determine the age of the students. This is what you can do. Rather than think about this in code, remember this is a fake code. So rather than think about this thing in code, ask yourself, if you were to see a student now, you are a teacher, and you've been told that students 5 years, kindergarten, 6 to 17, goes from nursery to secondary, and then greater than 17 goes to college or university, and you have a student, what's the first thing you will do to that child? To determine his age, what's the first thing you will do to determine his age?
Can I go here?
Please, you can go on.
Okay. Can I go here?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think the first thing you have to do is to ask the student how old is he or she.
Thank you. This option came the closest. This option. You can mute now because of echo and the rest. Thank you. This option came the closest. Yes, it says age of the students, but it would have been better if we said ask for the age of the students. Now, after this option, after asking for the age of the students, you have that child in your school. Now leave code, bring this thing to your real life, because that's what programming is all about, solving real life problems. If I come here and I write print, I just come here and I write print, and I write hello world. Alright, if I take this thing to Python, I've written a code though, so I'm a coder, but I'm not a programmer, because this code does not solve any problem, nothing. So you're a software engineer because you want to solve problems. Break every single line down. Determine, how do I determine a student's class? By his age. I have to ask his age. Now after asking his age, which is step 1, what step do you think will follow? Generally,
ask for class.
Okay, you are not. Now look at the question. You are going to determine something. What are you determining? What are you determining?
The class by age.
So you're determining his class, and what you would use to determine it is his age. Now you've known his age, so what's the next thing? You are the one saying his class. So after knowing his age, what's the next thing you do?
Use the information already given in the question to determine the class.
Thank you. Use the info. So let's say we are talking to the computer and say use the info already given to store to determine his or her class. Great. Now this is good for me because I know what you say. You say it simply means whatever the student tells me, I should now use it to say, oh yeah, go to your class. The computer, however, sees this information as too bogus, too complex. The computer wants you to break it down in its simplest form. So after asking for the age of the students, now think about this. We are not told the students, but we are told various numbers here. So it means it's more than one student that's coming on. So if you have a school and you have like 100 students coming daily, by the time you ask for the student's age, what would you do next? You have 100, not one that you can just remember in your head. What's the next thing you do?
You group by age.
Okay, I have 100
You have to
students.
store it.
Thank you.
You have to store it.
Thank you. I have to store it. It's either I will have a written book or I'll have a computer or I'll have something. I'll not say student 1, age is 17. So the next thing I'm going to do after asking for his age is to store the age. After storing the age now, store the age of each student. After storing the age, what would I do now? Now I have his age and I've stored his age. So what would I look at now? What do you think is the next thing I'm looking at?
And you check how old.
That's the age. Place students in age groups 5, 6 to 17 and greater than 17.
Great. Store the students in age groups. That is 5, that's 1. 6 to 17 is another, and then 17 plus 17 plus is another. I just removed the plus because remember pseudocode is writing your thought process in plain English. So if I do plus, I'm writing a syntax. Now in this, you've basically done everything. But this is not specific enough for the computer. Which age groups? This has done everything, but this is not specific to the computer. Now 5 goes to kindergarten and you store them in 5, 6 to 17 and 17 plus. Alright, so they will be stored there now. It's not going to kindergarten, they are not going to nursery, they are not going to college, they are just being stored. That's what the computer will read it as. So you could do something like this. If the student is 5, then his class is kindergarten. Now if from where we've stored their age, if each student, or if a student, so we are now referring to one, is going to check for each and every one of them and say, you're 5, yes, from what I've stored, you're 5. From what I asked you for your age, you told me you're 5, yes, I stored it, yes. Now I'm going through all my information I have stored, and you're 5, it's confirmed. Then go to kindergarten, please. So what do you think my fourth step will be? Now I'm done with 5, so I'm going to be looking if a student is 5, his class is kinder.
Okay, if a student age is greater than 5 and the student's age is less than 17, then his class should be nursery. The child should go to nursery.
Should. So let me put it in a new line. Then the child should go to nursery. Let me just use this. Yeah. Nursery. Let me just use this. Alright. Now if the student age is greater than 5 and a student age is less than 17, child should go to nursery. So this child is 5, his class is kinder. If his child age is greater than 5, less than 17, so 6 is greater than 5, 16 is less than 17.
Okay, let me try.
Okay, so
okay, I want to say something about step 3.
Yeah.
Okay, for the step 3, I think why don't we do if a student is less than 6, because someone may be, except if we know that the limit is 5, but what if in a school where a student can be 4 years plus, should we ignore that? So I'm thinking we could do if a student is less than 6 in that step 3.
Fine. So if a student is less than 6, meaning 4, his class will be kinder, right?
Exactly.
Say the program. Which class goes to kinder? Which age?
Okay, which means it's just 5. Okay, I get it.
Yes. So I like that thought process. This person has looked at this thing now and has identified a problem with this question in itself. And that's what you are there to do. You're there to solve problems. He's identified a problem. This child is 4 but it's not up to 5. Where does he go? The program didn't say so. And that's the confusion many people have with their ALX program. Write your pseudocode first. Your flowchart will be easy. Your flowchart is just you drawing those things you've written in pseudocode. But now, your pseudocode is where your thinking is. 5 goes to kinder. What if it's less than 5? Because greater than 17. Now, look at this question 4. Very nice, but very complex step. If a student age is greater than 5 and less than 17, why don't we do if a student is 6 to 16 or 6 to 17, because that's what CS says, 6 to 17. If a student is 6 to 17, then nursery to secondary. A better way of writing that same if is greater than and less than. We are just assuming that the person reading this thing reading our program wants to have a rough idea of what we are about to write as code. So we are not going to complicate things for that person. That's it. Now you could just use the same pattern. If it's greater than 17, copy it. Then go to college. And now that's where your thinking comes in. What if it's less than 5? Because we've handled all numbers except numbers from 0 to 5. Here didn't tell us what we'll do. But if you give a program like this and you put 0 there, your program will crash. But if you leave it like this, you've done everything this thing asks for. Another smart thinking person will now say, if less than 5, tell students that no provision is for him. Your code doesn't crash again. If you're less than 5, I'm sorry, but there's no offer for you at this time. If you think about websites you've been to, there's something like this. There's no offer at this time. This is the concept behind it. It's a logical concept behind it. Just think about sometimes when you want to buy Udemy courses or something, and then the countdown is over. It says, oh, this special offer has expired. There's no special offer at this time because the program doesn't contain it. And rather than allowing it crash, you now tell the system, if you don't see what you're looking for, please tell that child that there's no provision for him. Did you see the thought process? Now, someone may not put this and will still be correct, because see what the program said do and see what he did. Correct. The person, however, that puts this shows more thinking. This is pseudocode. This is what it's about. There's one project that talks about calculating sum of square. Right? Calculating sum of square. So let me just talk about that briefly. I don't even have the question. Is somebody there with the question? Let me just talk about that briefly. Note, I do not want to incur the wrath of ALX. So I'm going to give you hints of it. But just tell me the question, because I don't have it. Calculate sum of square of whether two given numbers or so. I know someone should just tell me. If you're just tell me the question.
No, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, you're actually correct. It calculates the sum of squares of given input of numbers. That was the question.
Alright. So if you understood what we did with this rice example first, which was the simplest one, and then you understood this important concept of pseudocode. 1, fake code. 2, plain English. 1, fake code. 2, plain English. Just to help you prepare your mind, give a rough step of what to do. Now tell me your thought process to calculate sum of square of given inputs. What's the first thing you do?
I think you pick your number range.
Okay. Step 1 is to number range. So if I'm going to calculate sum of squares of given inputs, first person said the step 1 should be the number range. Any other idea?
Okay.
Or you agree with it?
Since they said a given input,
Yeah.
it means I have to receive that input in the first place. So I need to receive input of numbers I need to receive the numbers in the first place. I don't know how to do it exactly.
Thank you. So this is another person's first step. You agree with it? You have something to say, or you totally disagree with these two people's first step? Tell me.
So when I said marriage, I'm assuming that they expect us to determine our own input of numbers. Like I can determine independently to pick 1, 2, 3, 4, for example, and that is my input. Before I now go ahead to the next step of finding the squares and then the sum.
Fine. Now you can also make assumptions.
No, you have to receive it.
Okay. Now.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone.
All right.
Good evening,
Yeah,
everyone. My
just
name is
go.
Ete. And for us to be able to understand this, I prefer you write the question out so that we can easily look at it and then know what we're talking about.
Okay.
And for those coming into the call, you can easily see what we are dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you for that listing. I'm doing it right now. I think this is calculate sum of squares of given inputs of numbers. I think that's what someone said, right? This is a question. Alright, this is a question. And then, alright, so the first person did this with an assumption. Okay. The second person said no assumptions. First step is to receive input of numbers. No assumption. Any other person has any other thing?
Yes, I do.
Please tell me.
I think the first step should be numbers
Numbers. That's a
or
statement.
input of numbers.
Input of numbers. That's a statement
Yes.
that even I don't understand. What am I? Input of numbers, okay? Are you giving me input of numbers? Am I giving you? Am I storing? What am I doing with input of numbers?
You can say enter numbers.
Enter numbers.
Well done. You guys are really doing a great job. But looking at the question, you have to first of all know the formula, how to go about it. Then the next thing, you define the variable. You give the user the opportunity to input numbers. That's the next step. First of all, know the formula on how to calculate squares of a given input of numbers. First of all, it's sum of squares. Know how to calculate the sum of squares. If you know how the formula is, it will help you know how to design, write a program or a pseudocode on how it's going to work.
So first step is to know how to calculate sum of squares.
Yes, know the formula to calculate sum of squares. That's the part.
So
know that.
Are we
Once you
telling?
know that.
So are we telling the computer know the formula to calculate sum of squares?
No, we're not telling the computer. Basically, what I said that is, okay, now you just wrote a question, calculate the sum of squares. If I'm to do this, first of all, I'll define a variable that will give the user to be able to. Well, it could be two sets of number and there, but so for example, you said number, so
yeah.
we'll define two variables that will take in those numbers. So the user will be able to impute numbers.
Define
and then the system will run.
Two variables.
Yeah.
That's will.
Yeah.
That's will. That's will what?
That will accept numbers that is going to do that the system is going to. You just define two variables. That's it. That will give the user opportunity to impute the numbers. Define the variable.
Define a variable that will accept numbers. Right.
That's first step. You define a variable.
Okay, is this the first step?
That's the first step. Why I spoke about understanding the formula, so that to give you an idea of how to crack your pseudocode. That's why I spoke about that first one. But the first step here is to define variables, or two variables that will accept, that will take inputs as in numbers.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, what do you think about? Now we've gotten 3 responses, and I don't want more. You know what you should do with your more? Write it down. Every modern Windows system should come with Notepad. So just come here if you're using Windows 10 and search for Notepad, and you have access to this Notepad or any other notebook you use on your system, and write your own steps. But out of these 3 steps, someone gave, this third person here gave an explanation that I was going to soon come to. But out of these 3 steps, which one do you think is precise? It's more precise. I need answers. The first person says number range. Now there's an assumption that we already have, or we can give it the inputs of numbers we like, and so with that assumption we just get the number range. That's step 1. Step 2 says, the second person says, my step 1, no assumption, I'm just going to receive input of numbers first. To solve this question, I'm going to receive input of numbers first. The third person says, define a variable that will accept the numbers, so that will accept inputs of numbers. So which one do you think is more precise? Or you think the 3 of them are lacking something and you have it? Answers.
Okay. For me, I think I vibe more with the third option, but I think the third option, it's missing a step.
Okay, what step is it missing?
I think the first one should be define the variable. Define the variable. Then after defining the variable, then the next step will be define the formula. Define the formula of the variable.
So that be define formula of.
First of all, define the variables.
Yeah.
Should be define the variable. That should be the first step.
Okay, so this is
define the variables.
So this is your own. I'm not going to break his pseudo, so I'm just going to say define
the variables.
Define the variables. Okay.
Then define the formulas.
Then
of the variables.
So this is 2 step. The formula.
yeah, this is the second step.
We're talking about the first step
of the variables.
Okay. So let's just leave it at define the variables.
Okay. So we have 4 now. No more, please.
So
out of these 4, although this one and this one, Shahi said this one was correct but missing something. It's not as if it's this one that is missing the thing, Shah. Alright. So out of these 4 now, which one do you agree with?
I agree with the 4. The 4th one, rather, the 4th example of the first step.
To define the variables. Define variables. Now, very good. Define variables. what he just said here that's different from here was 2. So if he removed the 2 and just said define variables, that will what? Remember this example. Remember this example we did about students. Ask for age. No, this is correct, but it's lacking something. Age of what? Age of the dog. The computer does not know what you're saying. You get? It doesn't even know what you mean by ask for age. Now you're now going to say of each student as your first step. So that's okay. So it's only interested in students. Define variables that will what? I just keep var a var b as my first step. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And then in my second step, that's why he was going to the second step to define formulas. But how about this as a first step? Define variables that will accept the input of numbers. And there's something I like the diversion. It shows that you get the point. You know, when I did mine back in June, this was my step 1. Hey, problem do. Start the program. That was my own step 1. Start the program. I don't so like stress. My step 1 is that you should open your text editor and start the program first. And then I started with the next define things, blah blah blah. That was my own. And I like the fact that somebody did this, someone did this. And now receive input of numbers, right? This variable is going to accept input of numbers. So if you look at these 2, they are the same. If you look at these 3 very well, they are the same things, that one has more precision than the other 2. Define variables. The variables will accept input of given numbers. Now, there's something this guy said here that I quite fancy. Calculate sum of squares of given input of numbers. I'm going to break this. Calculate the sum of squares. I think that's the first question. And then the second is given input of numbers. And so I'll be asking myself, what step goes first? Is it the calculation or the input? And common sense will tell me you can't calculate what you don't know. So I have to get the input first. And that's why I'll say define variables that will accept input of numbers. Now look at someone, a non-coding person that doesn't have an idea. Most people here have ideas. Somebody was doing if age greater than or less than. That's big programming language, very big one, because that's what you do. You can't just say if student is 6. You can't write this as a programming syntax. So try and error. So he's using programming knowledge, which is good. You can ask you to write a pseudocode in Python. So you are going to use Python terminologies, or in C. But for someone who doesn't know anything about code, and that's what ALX assume you do, you don't know anything about code yet, just your thought process, and then you show a layman that doesn't have an idea what this is talking about, you tell him that my first step is to define things called variables, or receive input of numbers. That's my first step. It will be more clear for that guy who does not know anything to understand this, or even this, than just define variables. For what? That's the next question here. If you say number range, how? Now you have an assumption in your head, but pseudocode, apart from just your head, it's so that others that are reading it, that have no business with programming, that are not developers, can understand what you are planning to do. So if I go with this, define variables that will accept input of numbers, fine. If I say define variables, step 1, very good. I shared before that I said start the program. That's okay. Receive input of numbers. That's the same thing as define variables. Here now, if I had done this, Control C, that will, so automatically now these two are now the same thing, but what was missing here is define variables. So I could say receive input of numbers from the user, because we would get input of numbers and they are going to be given. We don't know the given one. After this step now, so you could define variables that will what? It's question mark with this. Variables will what? So you could put that one in your step 2, and that's fine. You understand? There's nothing wrong. It's how you map your mind. If some people want to write code, you will see the code very long. This code that I was writing just now, we are given a maximum of 10 lines. Our code should not pass 10 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Mine was 9. You know, some people write this code and it would be 16 lines. In their pseudocode too, they could go in details, and this step will reach like 10. Define variables, accept inputs, store inputs, create inputs. That's totally okay. But if you do this too, that's also fine. Now this is the point. Whether you do A or B, whether you use this step, you only define, then come down to state what your variable is doing, or you say receive input of numbers, or you say define variables that will accept input of numbers, there's just one word I have for it: you're correct. At the end of the day, what it may be lacking is precision, how precise your step was, which is okay. You know, it's just like when you say the rice, measure the volume of rice you want to boil. That's okay. But the person that says go to the market is more precise, and that's okay. You know, at the end of the day, following this go to the market, buy 5 cups of rice, come back home to the kitchen, add water in a boil, untie the rice bag, would give somebody more precision. You know, you just follow all the process and you're able to succeed. That's the same thing here. So after defining variables that will accept an input of numbers, no matter how you want to do it, it must accept input of numbers. So if you break this step into 4, this one into 4, that's okay. You get? If you keep it at 1 like this, that's also okay. Now after this, what's the next step? Remember, we broke our distance into 2. Calculate the sum of squares of given inputs. So after getting the inputs, it's simple now. Next step is to calculate sum of squares. So how do you calculate sum of squares? That's my question now to myself. It's me thinking about this question. How do I calculate sum of squares? And I'm like, okay, I can calculate sum of squares using blah blah blah. I will now write next formula. Define a formula for calculating sum of squares. Some people will go ahead to state down the formula: 5 times 5. Let's do that, and it will now look like mathematics. That's okay. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's just like when they ask you what is your opinion. At that point, the person is saying anything you feel, say it. Map your mind. You know. So I could, if it's me that don't like stress, I would, in my second step, I would just say define formula to calculate given inputs. To calculate the inputs I've gotten, to calculate the sum of squares of input I've gotten. That's what I write as my step 2. And then after calculating it, after getting a variable that will accept inputs, and then I have something that will calculate it. First, our variable that will accept the input will store it. So I could use precision and say store the inputs, alright? And probably number 3 step will now be calculate the formula for sum of squares. So you can now do your own research by coming to Google to check how do I get sum of squares of a number, which is pretty simple. But that's not the point of this thing. It's to prepare you what steps. After defining variables, you will need the formula to calculate sum of squares, and after calculating the sum of squares, you will have to print out the sum of squares. Now, how would you arrange these 3 steps I've given? You could decide to break these 3 major steps into 5. Well, the 3 major steps are calculate, receive the inputs first. You are going to store that input, that's under receiving. You are going to get the formula to calculate the sum of squares of your inputs, and then you are going to print out whatever the sum of squares is. Simple. You could add more precision and other things to it, and that's how you get it. Once you are very good with flowcharts, which we'll be using most times, here flowcharts was used. I don't know if you can see this screen very clearly. Flowcharts, I said flowcharts. My pseudocode was used as my commented out statements. So for each line I write, I comment it out. So when reading my code, you already know what each line does. Ask for age. You're going to see me say age, input, what is your age? Flowchart is, pseudocode is very important. Flowchart is now a drawing. If you understand pseudocode, that same code that you wrote, come to draw.io now and draw it. Or app.diagrams.net. I think these two, I think they are the same thing now, right? They are even the same thing, formerly known as draw.io. I think they are the same thing. They basically do the same thing. Now come here and draw your draw.io. Try for free. Nah, what's the official one that ALX put in their this thing? Was it this draw.io? Some official one they put that time. I don't know if they've changed their user interface from the last time I used them. I don't like this. Try it for free. I'm never going to use a flowchart except I was asked in a task to do a flowchart. I would rather use pseudocode because I don't have strength to draw. What I'm saying here, I don't know if it's only my browser, but it's not going to load. So what's the official one ALX gave? I don't know it. So go to my ALX.
Yeah, so they gave draw.io.
Draw.io. Okay, save diagrams was almost opening there. I think they are the same thing. The same thing. Last time I used them, they were only speaking this Chinese. Draw.io. So let me go to that website, draw.io, to see if it's redirects. Let me open it. And then in one of the ALX official this thing, I remember vividly they explained what each symbol stands for. Start a process, return a process, how to work with those symbols. They explained it clearly. I think they did that.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's my network or draw.io is not responding. I don't know, one of the two, which
Yeah,
Does it?
sorry. It's meant to the job I is meant to take you to your Google Drive, and I think I saw Google Drive icon on your screen. Maybe you could just try it again and click on the Google Drive.
Yes, with what was the other one? Flowcharts maker apps dot
Why
diagram.
is not opening your network?
Yeah, it's my network, right?
Sorry, why is not opening your network? Mine open.
Okay. I'll save my diagram to Google Drive. Oh, and now all this whole stress. I know, don't ask me to put password. Continue. It's very long. They go now, no choice. Authorizer. Okay, so let me just get out of there. Hey, decide later. And now the symbol to start a program. I know we use the arrow a lot, and then I moved the arrow a lot that time, and I'm just doing a rough sketch. I don't even know what the circle means again. So let me just keep them. So this is basically you playing around with these diagrams now, and then so what's the step to start a program or receive inputs? Like, what would be the diagram for it? I think these are the diagrams down here. You drag elements, then we can write in them. Where did we even write? Was it in edit style, or how did we write at that time?
So I think we have a start first.
Yeah, I remember writing start in all of my programs. Like, even if I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm just write start first. I'm looking for that key to write something. I don't know where it is. So maybe if I want to do this again, I'll just come to my this thing and pretty much how to text button, how to use the text button in this thing. Or I just ask one guy, hey, where's the text button? Because I don't even know where it is. Arrows. No. Yeah. Diagram, the arrow. So it's just me playing around with this thing. For me, the biggest issue in this flowchart is actually to draw. Not the concept though, it's to do the drawing. And I'm not good at drawing at all. So I'll just pretty much draw nonsense. Don't do it though. Draw what we can understand. I don't know where to write the stats from here in flowchart. So
Just
double click. Oh yes.
click on the diagram, you'll be able to write. The option will come out.
Thank you. I just did that and it worked. As usual. It's just me catching cruise with the diagrams now. And I know start is start a circle.
I think so.
Oh wow.
No. Start. You don't use circle.
It's not.
Start.
No,
Use over 3
Okay, I'm not hearing what they are saying, but in any case, so in ALX this thing, where I got how to draw what the symbols meant from was in ALX intranet from that this thing. This one is recorded, so, and this is not even the main this thing. The drawing is the less thing to be concerned about. The earlier, the more you draw, the better. I actually looked up some other people's drawing that time to know how I would make my own big or small or with all of that. So, but once you get the general idea for the pseudocode, once you get the general idea for it, then the drawing being the last step, and I've deleted. Now I can click to save nothing. So, and probably download it, then upload it in Google Drive or whatever. So basically, this is the most annoying part for me, this drawing. But yeah, sometimes some people will leave the pseudocode and request for drawings. So they are now this thing. Let me see messages I have. Okay. So that's what makes it annoying. But basically, I don't know if the concept of this is clear. This is where the rethinking is. For me, some other people, like my friends, what they actually did, about 2 of them went to the flowchart and did all their thinking there, and they came here to write it. So if that one works for you, fine. But me, all my thinking happens here. And if I'm really writing a program, I'm going to comment out all this line. So if you're reading my program, you know what each line is doing. Even if I leave it for 5 years, if I come back, I'm not wondering what the hell did I write, So these are uses of pseudocode. I'm not sure you can comment out drawings. So I hope this concept of pseudocode is clear. Clear now.
Yeah, it's making sense.
That's exactly what I aimed. So if you notice, and I've actually stopped that for previous cohorts 8 and a little of 9, I did give direct answers, go to the internet and do this thing. But it's a course of wisdom to avoid problems. ALX strictly forbids that. So even this one that I've talked about, input sum, they could come for me because of this question, or they could pardon me because of this. That's why I didn't write down all the steps. I just continue with the step 1. But they want you to think, use your head, and that's why I told everybody, if you came from my group, I told everybody there that for your first 2 weeks, don't copy anybody, use your head. All the projects are simple, they are just a matter of this thing. Don't copy any code, don't look at any video that gives you the answer. Instead, look at video that explains the concepts, because you'll be working with these things for the rest of the 1 year. I just asked someone who is in their final sprints, and say now they are writing pseudocodes on the topics, on the code they are writing. So this is it. If you have issues with I think the last tax is easily, was it an advanced tax, or they've not gotten to the advanced stage yet? I think there was one confusing this thing about it. It wasn't confusing for me writing the code though, but it was confusing doing the drawing. If you have questions about that, you can always reach out and ask. If I'm available, I'll answer, or drop it in the group. The guy that actually did this,
how to join your group?
Send me a message on WhatsApp or Slack.
Okay.
Send me a message.
Please.
Send me a message on WhatsApp or Slack. This is my listing 081481856.
Please, can you drop your WhatsApp now?
I've put it in the comments.
Okay.
Put it in the comments.
Okay.
For people that are not in Nigeria, the country code is +234. But I don't like stress. If you're in Nigeria, it's 08148185691. So yes, that's the number. So you want to go ahead and do this. On my YouTube channel, there are videos on Emacs and VR and Shell. If you don't understand Shell navigation, Git will be very difficult. You see, as these projects move from top, like from bottom to the top. If you don't understand Shell nav, you will be doing Git and Git will give you headache. So go back and understand Shell navigation, not the project though. To submit project is one thing, to understand it is another. You can do the project with your hands, not copy anybody, and still do not understand it. It happened to me a lot. So basically that's it. So I hope pseudocode now is it's as simple as it looks. It's basically you, but push your brain to the lowest detail and look for the nicest way to write it down so that others can read it. Then when you're now writing normal codes, you'll be able to write code that makes a lot of sense. But for now, forget about the coding terminologies. For I, don't do this. Don't do this. For I equal to I plus don't do this now. This is pseudocode, guy. It's a fake code. I see a lot of people doing that. Write it in plain English and make software engineering look simple to you. Yes.
I think that was the part that was giving me serious issue before now. Those I equals to it's just like jargon to me.
Yeah.
So but the way you did it now, it makes a lot of sense. Like you can listen it out loud. I never knew you can just listen like this and it's still very much allowed. I thought you must put those codes equals to blah 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 blah. I thought it would be in that format.
Nah.
And that has been giving me serious issues.
Nah, I don't even know where I saved it from, but it was even said that except if you are asked to write in a particular language, you get. If you're asked to write in Java, now you have to use Java terminologies. But even at that, you have to make it easy. But when they say just write pseudocode, brother, they've given you the permission to just break down the steps. And that's what algorithms and data structures is also all about, breaking down the steps. But those for I would confuse you, especially if you're seeing it for the first time. For I, yeah, like for what? Is the for I for Gary?
For what? Is it for Eba? Is it for Gary?
Reflex.
Is it for beans? I don't know. For what? Is it for Eba? Is it for Gary? Is it for beans? I don't know. Eba, Gary, beans. I don't know.
For I, what are you looping? Even if you want to loop, you could just say go through, read all. You know, if I do read all and I do for I in range, you know what I've done? I've made this coding terminology this simple. Now imagine a recruiter reading this thing and this one. The recruiter is going to know that this person knows what he's doing in his code. He's able to make code look very simple that even a non-coding person can understand. Read all. For I in range like 20 would simply read from 0 to 20. Read all numbers. So 20. You know, these two things that I've just said now do the same thing. But look, one is more easy for a beginner to understand than this person, than this other one. And trust me, nobody wants to see your complex things. Good codes are read like book. So even if you use for I, use for numbers in range. You know, even if you want to use coding terminology, which I don't think is necessary for now, like use for numbers rather than for I. So another person imitates you and puts for nose, you know, like nose like this, like does. So basically that's it. Make it look simple to yourself. It's not difficult at all. I've done my best to explain
I
it.
think it's your number, please.
It's what?
Your number, I didn't get it. So
And-
you say you dropped it in the comment section.
Yes, I you in the message. It's what is there, the last, just scroll down. Or if you're recording, collect it from 081 481 85691. Have you seen it on the chat?
No, 081, please come again.
081 481
Okay. 481
yes 856
856.
yeah 91
Come again. 856 what?
91
91. Okay, thank you.
yeah. So I've It's basically the last test there. 081-481-856-91. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that's been here. You have questions again?
Thank you very much.
You can ask Telegram, WhatsApp.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you want to get me, personally, the fastest way to get me is to send me a message on WhatsApp. I am always online on WhatsApp. If you use Slack or Telegram, I can see it in the evening, in the midnight, or even the next day. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alright, so I'm out. See you on WhatsApp.